My sister says I ruined my daughter's birthday because I served seafood instead of cake. My daughter just turned 5, and if you ask her what her favorite food is, she'll say seafood, not pizza, not cake, seafood. So for her birthday, that's exactly what she wanted. I threw her a seafood boil instead of a birthday cake. She had her own seafood platter. We even stuck the number 5 candle right into it. She absolutely loved it. And before anyone asks, yes, I told everyone in the invitation. It literally said it was a seafood-themed party. I also made sure there were burgers, hot dogs, fries, fruit, chips, drinks, and cupcakes for anyone who didn't want seafood. So everyone had something to eat. Most people thought it was adorable. Some even laughed when they saw the candle and the seafood. Then my sister showed up and immediately started complaining. She said it wasn't a real birthday party. Apparently, birthdays are supposed to have pizza and cake. Then she complained that her kids didn't like the food. I reminded her there were burgers, fries, fruit, chips, and cupcakes. But she wasn't talking about her kids. She said I should have planned the menu around what the guests wanted, not what my daughter wanted. I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was my daughter's birthday, not hers. So I finally told her, if you don't like it, you don't have to stay. She got furious, grabbed her kids, and left. Now she's telling the whole family that I embarrassed her. She even made a Facebook post trying to shame me. But I still don't understand. When did a child's birthday stop being about the child?
My classmate offered to drive me home after night class, but he started driving the opposite direction. I took night classes. One of my classmates always drove me home. He was always nice to me, so I trusted him. One night, instead of driving me home, he suddenly pulled over. We were in the middle of nowhere. There were only woods. It was almost midnight. I asked, "What are you doing?" Then he smiled. "Let's go for a walk in the woods." I laughed, then realized he wasn't joking. I told him no and asked him to take me home. He looked angry, but started driving again. I thought it was over. It wasn't. A few minutes later, he pulled into an empty parking lot, got out of the car, and made a phone call. When he came back, he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "Get in the back seat." I froze. I told him, "Take me home." He stared at me, then got out of the car again. He paced behind the car for what felt like forever. I secretly texted my best friend. I sent her my location and one message. "If you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, call the police." I honestly thought I wasn't making it home. Finally, he got back in, started the car, and drove me home. I blocked him that night and told him never to contact me again. He apologized, but I never spoke to him again. To this day, I still believe I escaped something terrifying that night.
I thought my roommate was stealing from me, but I was accusing the wrong person. I moved in with my roommate about a year ago. We'd been friends since college. For months, everything was great. Then little things started disappearing. $20 from my wallet, my AirPods, a hoodie. Nothing big enough to call the police, but enough to make me suspicious. My roommate was the only other person with a key, so I confronted him. He looked genuinely hurt. He swore he hadn't touched my stuff. I didn't believe him. Things got tense. We barely spoke. Then one weekend, I left town. When I came back, my laptop was gone. I was furious. I told him I was done. I said I was filing a police report. He didn't argue. He just said, "Check your camera first." I'd forgotten I had a small camera pointed at my front door. So I pulled up the footage, and my roommate was right. He never entered my room, but someone else did. My landlord. He'd been using his master key, coming in while we were gone. At first, it was just looking around. Then he started taking things. The hoodie, the cash, my laptop. I called the police. They searched his apartment and found boxes filled with belongings from multiple tenants. My roommate moved out a month later, not because he was angry, but because I'd spent weeks accusing the one person who had been telling me the truth. My stepsister didn't invite my fiancé to her wedding. Now she expects me to invite her husband to mine. My fiancé and I are getting married this September. My stepsister got married earlier this year. When her invitations went out, I was invited, but my fiancée wasn't. I asked if it was a venue or budget issue. She simply said no plus one. We accepted it. It was disappointing, but we figured there had to be a reason. Then we got to the wedding and realized my fiancée wasn't the only person left out. My stepsister had invited one half of multiple couples and left the other half at home. Married couples, long-term partners, even family members. As a result, several people didn't even show up. Then things got even worse. My grandfather, the man who officiated the wedding, asked me where my fiancée was. When I told him she hadn't been invited, he looked shocked. He told me he had no idea. Then I found out something else. He had paid for the entire wedding. So money wasn't the issue. There was plenty of room. It had simply been her decision. I won't lie. That hurt. This is the same stepsister I've known since she was a kid. The same person I've always tried to support. I never imagined she'd treat us that way. Now my wedding is only a few months away. My stepsister expects to come, but neither I nor my fiancée want to invite her husband. My parents actually agree with us. They think if she could exclude my future wife from her wedding, she shouldn't expect us to invite her husband to ours. I don't want to start a family war, but after everything that happened, I honestly don't know if inviting him is the right thing to do. My daughter's boyfriend has eaten dinner with us for 2 years, and I've never seen him take a single bite. My daughter has been dating her boyfriend for about 2 years. He's a great guy, polite, respectful. My daughter loves him, but there's one thing that drives me absolutely crazy. In 2 years, I've never seen him eat, not once. Whenever we go to a restaurant, he orders a full meal. He cuts up the food, moves it around the plate, makes it look like he's eating, but never actually takes a bite. When the meal is over, he boxes everything up or gives it away. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence. Then he came over for dinner. I made a full home-cooked meal. He filled his plate, cut everything into little pieces, pushed it around with his fork, and when everyone finished, he dumped the entire plate into the trash. I finally asked my daughter what was going on. She told me he has a severe phobia of eating in front of other people. I felt bad. I really did. But then I asked, if he knows he isn't going to eat, why does he keep taking a full plate? She said, in his culture, refusing food is considered rude. But I can't stop thinking about all the food, the money, the waste. I've even watched confused waiters ask if something was wrong with his meal. Nothing was. He just wasn't going to eat it. Now I'm seriously considering telling my daughter. Her boyfriend is welcome in our home, but not at family dinners anymore. Am I being insensitive? Or is there a limit to how much waste I'm expected to accept? My wife divorced me because I kept preaching religion to kids in Fortnite like the faithful sheriff. I'm 29. My wife is 27. And apparently, I took Fortnite way too seriously. Every night, I'd queue into fill squads. Sometimes fill duos. Not to win. To spread the word of God. I'd land with random teammates. And before we even left the battle bus, I'd clear my throat and say, "Good evening, brothers. Before we begin today's match, I'd like to share a message from the faithful sheriff." Most kids thought it was hilarious. Some muted me immediately, but every now and then, someone actually listened. I'd spend the first 5 minutes of every match talking about forgiveness, kindness, and why stealing your teammates' loot was a sin. If someone got knocked, I'd tell the squad, "Leave no brother behind." If someone rage quit, I'd say, "The sheriff's heart weeps for another lost soul." My wife begged me to stop. She said, "You're arguing about morality with 12-year-olds. I told her, "I'm not arguing. I'm guiding them. I'm guiding them." Things only got worse. I bought a cowboy hat. I refused to play unless I was wearing it. I even started calling myself the deputy of the faithful sheriff. One night, my wife walked into my office. I was explaining to 3 random kids why third partying was a temptation they must resist. She stood there, listening in complete silence. The next morning, I found divorce papers on the kitchen table. The reason simply said, "Irreconcilable differences." But she wrote one extra sentence. "I can't compete with the faithful sheriff anymore. I still miss her. But every evening, when I load into fill squads, my congregation is waiting." I said I wanted to lose weight naturally, and suddenly everyone turned on me. I've been overweight my entire life. At my heaviest, I weighed almost 290 pounds. Over the last few years, I lost around 60 pounds. I changed how I ate, started exercising, and lost 60 pounds. Over the 4th of July, I met up with some old friends, and I couldn't believe it. Almost all of them had lost 60 to 80 pounds too. I congratulated them, and we started comparing what worked. I explained everything I'd been doing. They all looked at me, like I'd forgotten to mention something. Then one of them smiled and said, "We're all on GLP-1s. Every single one of them." I told them, "That's awesome. They're just not for me. I'd rather lose weight the natural way." The table went completely silent. Then my friend Mary snapped. She said, "So you think we're cheating?" I immediately said no. I told her, "I'm only talking about myself. I just want to build habits I can keep without medication." But she wasn't listening. She said I was acting superior, that I thought I was better than everyone else. I finally asked, "If you still have to diet and exercise anyway, why are you offended that I don't want the injections?" That's when everything exploded. Mary stood up, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "You're still 250 pounds. Maybe your natural weight isn't working." I'll admit it. I rolled my eyes. The rest of dinner was painfully awkward. I figured that was the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, Mary texted me. She said she'd already talked to her doctor and could get me my first month of injections for free. I replied with 2 words, "No thanks." A few hours later, another friend called me. He said Mary had been telling people that I was a fatphobic fat person. Now half my friends think I insulted everyone, when all I did was explain how I wanted to lose weight. I told my brother he chooses to stay miserable, and now my family thinks I went too far. My brother is 25. I'm 20. He has struggled with depression for years, and I've always tried to be understanding. Our parents have spent years trying to help him. They paid for therapy, medication, treatment programs. They even bought him 3 different cars and offered to pay for his education. But nothing ever changed. He refused to work, refused school, and spent almost every day locked in his room, playing video games, talking on Discord, and blaming everyone else for his life. Meanwhile, every time something good happened to me, he'd accuse me of rubbing it in. If I talked about college, he'd say I thought I was better than him. If I mentioned my friends, he'd call me privileged. Last week, I was visiting my parents. My mom and I were talking about taking a cruise for my 21st birthday. That was enough. My brother exploded. He started yelling that I was showing off, that my life was easy, and that society handed women everything. After years of biting my tongue, I finally snapped. I told him, "Maybe you're miserable because you refuse to do anything except complain about your life." The room went silent. He called me heartless. My parents said I could have handled it better. But after watching everyone spend years trying to help him, I honestly don't know what else anyone is supposed to do. My wife's boyfriend cut off my internet because I wouldn't stop watching The Burnt Peanut. I'm 32. My wife is 31. And yes, she has a boyfriend. He comes over almost every day. He eats my food, sits in my recliner, and somehow acts like he owns the house. I work from home, and every evening, I relax by watching The Burnt Peanut. It's my favorite channel. My wife's boyfriend can't stand it. Every time he walks in, he rolls his eyes and says, "You're 32 years old. Get a real job. Stop watching that Burnt Peanut guy." I ignored him. Until one Saturday, I sat down to watch the newest Burnt Peanut upload, but my internet was gone. I restarted the router. Nothing. Then he started laughing. He admitted he changed the Wi-Fi password. He looked at me and said, "Maybe now you'll finally stop watching The Burnt Peanut and do something productive." My wife just shrugged. So I didn't argue. I waited. The next morning, I remembered something. I was the only person with access to our router's admin settings. So I changed one thing. I blocked every device he owned. His phone, his laptop, his tablet, everything. He spent the entire weekend trying to figure out why nothing would connect. Finally, he asked if I could fix it. I smiled and said, "Sorry, The Burnt Peanut says you should get a real job instead." My sister called my wife fat, and I didn't defend her. My wife still says I betrayed her. My sister says I did the right thing. And honestly, I don't know who's right anymore. My wife and my sister have never gotten along. My sister is a single mom. She and her son's father split up years ago. They co-parent peacefully, but my wife has never accepted it. Every time they see each other, she tells my sister she should marry her ex. She says people will judge her, and that her son deserves married parents. My sister has begged her to stop. I've begged my wife to stop. She never listens. Last week, my sister came over. Everything was normal. Until my wife said, "Maybe people wouldn't think your son was illegitimate if you married his father." My sister immediately stood up and said, "Maybe you should worry about losing 100 pounds instead of worrying about my life. A wedding ring won't hide your triple chin." My wife burst into tears. My sister walked out. I didn't say a word. And that's when my real problem began. After my sister left, my wife looked at me and asked one question. "Why didn't you defend me?" I told her the truth. I thought what my sister said was cruel. But after years of being insulted, I couldn't honestly pretend it came out of nowhere. My wife couldn't believe what she was hearing. She said a husband should always defend his wife, no matter what. I told her, "I'll defend you when you're wronged, but I can't defend you when you start the fight." Now she says I chose my sister over my own wife. My parents think my sister finally snapped after years of taking abuse. My sister refuses to apologize. My wife says she won't forgive either of us. And somehow, I'm the one everyone is angry at. Did I betray my wife, or was staying silent the only honest thing I could do?